Hello. How's everybody today? Hope you're doing good out there. You know, every day's a challenge. We know that, but we stay tough and we stay ready. And up here on the top of Grizzly Peak, we always take it like this, no left turn unstoned. And that's the way we're going today. Each and every one of you is so important in the world. It's a lesson in life all the time. If you think you're not important, just take yourself out of it for a second and realize all the people that rely on that person. It's been told many times, that story, but I got you and you got me, and that's one big important thing in this world, that we got each other in that way. And I think we should just jump in with the first caller. Are you ready, Lauren?
I sure am. Okay, so let's go with. I feel like we should do a caller we haven't spoken to in a while who always is eager to call in. This is Eddie
Okay.
from Indiana.
Jump in with the first caller.
Steve, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Eddie.
Hi, Steve. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Boy, I'll tell you what, Steve, I just got some wonderful news. Our school is actually going to start letting up on the COVID restrictions. It looks like we really did turn the corner.
Yes. We are. We got to stay tight now, but we are turning the corner. Things are getting a little better right now. There's no question about it. You can feel it, But now's the time we got to really be careful.
We're not doing the 6 feet distance anymore. We're not going to do the 6 feet distance anymore. We're going to be able to stay close, have to still wear our mask.
Well,
but oh my goodness, that's the best news that came out.
Are you a teacher, or you just have a child in the school?
No, I've been a teacher for 32 years, old buddy.
Oh, okay, good. I thought so. I thought you told me that. So, the thing is that is such a great job, teaching people. That's a hard job, man. It's one of the hardest jobs in the world. People don't even realize how amazing it is. And teachers are so important. Everything that we learn, man. If you don't have good teachers to get you excited and to learn, I really take my hat off to you, man. I'm glad that you're.
I couldn't agree with you more, bud.
Hey,
Steve, yesterday. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go ahead. I was just going to say more nice stuff about teachers. You go ahead.
Oh, okay. Steve, yesterday was the 62nd anniversary of the death of Buddy Holly. Now, you and I both know that the boys always do that not fade away. What kind of what kind of connection did the guys have with Buddy Holly?
Oh, my God. I'm so glad you asked that, Eddie, because we really did. There was a strong connection with Buddy Holly, and Jerry really was a big fan of his, and he zeroed in on it heavy. And I can remember at the Fillmore East one night, I was talking to Jerry about Buddy Holly. We were talking about it because I remember that day that Buddy Holly died. I was just a youngster, but my sister was older, and she listened to the radio every morning. She turned it right on, at 6 a.m. And so it was such a big deal. It was real tragedy. Richie Valens, who Jerry was a big fan of also, and the Big Bopper on that little plane. And the thing is that Jerry said, I said, Jerry, do you ever, when you play Not Fade Away, because we had played at that time, we had just met Bo Diddley, right? And so we were hanging out with Bo Diddley, and he was playing that Bo Diddley riff, and that's really that same beat that Buddy Holly had. So Jerry told me something that just made the hair on my neck stand up. He said, Steve, every time I play Not Fade Away, I see Buddy Holly's ghost in the side hall or in the balcony looking down at me.
Wow.
And yeah, he really told me that. I'm not kidding, man. And, it was a feeling that you had, that Buddy Holly's spirit was in that music, And when we went to Egypt and we had Hamza Al-Din there with us, he had the Sudanese guys all playing tars, and they would be the opening act. And you could hear that beat, that same beat, man, that dun, 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 and once you get that, man, it's just incredible. Exactly.
I love that too, man.
And it's fun to play on the drums. I've got to do it, and it's an amazing thing. But it's a primal thing in it, in that song. And so Buddy Holly was tapped into that, man, and he was a deep cat for sure, a real deep cat. And when the movie came out, of his life, we went to see it together, Jerry and I, and wow, we thought it was good, but it was still light, it was light going over of his life story. So then that opened up a thing where I started listening to all of his music and studying about him a little bit. And he was a really genius guy. Too bad we lost him so young, But, I'm glad you mentioned that. I had a premonition.
True Love Waits is probably the best song.
Oh, yeah.
The best song he's ever written.
What a great song, man. And so beautiful. That has the strings in it, and he went and did that whole thing on his own then, and had all that great
recorded.
Yes, because love is what he was thinking about, and he had his own way of putting that love out there, and he sure did a great job, man. And I'm glad you mentioned him. And Ritchie Valens, Jerry really identified with Ritchie Valens because he had a thing about him that Jerry, body type and the way he played guitar and some of the heritage of families and things like that. He really identified with Ritchie, and he felt sorry for him, in a way, because he died so young too.
He was 17 when he died. You're right.
Yeah, well, he was, I think, he was just not much more than that. I think he was a little older, but he was youngster of the group. And, we went on the road with Waylon Jennings years later, right? And Waylon told me that story that he turned down that plane ride from Iowa that night in the snow. It was a snowy night, and Ritchie Valens, I think, took his seat. And he was playing in, I think, Buddy Holly's band. I'm not sure who he was playing with. I forget now, but he turned that down. So there was a guy that told me, he said, boy, I'm so glad I didn't make that ride, because everybody was thinking, should I get on the plane, stay on the bus? It was, snowy, freezing night. Anyway, that day was a big effect on me.
Did Waylon carry any guilt with that?
No, not really. He never forgot it. It's something like that haunts you, if you're next in line or something like that, or you change your mind. It happens to everybody on the road, though. Stories. I can tell you stories about people that, rushed to make a flight, and the flight didn't make it, and they got on that flight because it was their choice. They changed flights, and then something happened on the plane. That's one person I know. But there's other people that made the right move and didn't get on a plane, or gave their seat to somebody else, and that kind of thing. But you never know in life, man. You get in a car, you get anything, you're always gambling in that way, You're rolling the dice every time. And so Waylon was such a great guy that he was able to take it on his shoulders, but he never forgot it, man. And he carried that stuff with him. You always do.
Well, look, that was Steve, good, I really appreciate you talking with me, buddy. And
good talking to you.
Let somebody else get on. Hey, take care. Have a great week.
All right. You too. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Okay, bye.
All right. Bye. Okay, who's next?
All right, let's see. Up next, we have Buddy. Buddy's calling in from Texas.
Buddy.
Big Steve, my brother.
Hey, brother. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. You know what? I was listening to your show last week, and I wanted to share with you.
Okay. Okay, I'll take that.
All right, man. I found that in my basement. Of course, that's a duck call.
That's perfect. I got pretty good at it when I would sit there. You can really make it sound like a duck, and it would fascinate me that you could do that. And it was a beautiful thing having those things in the Grateful Dead where we could jump in and help a band in that way. Get the right thing. But we had all kinds of duck calls, and there's a rabbit call too, the hurt rabbit call. That one was fun to play with too. But and there's a duck call, if I remember correctly, that you twisted too. You twisted it and it made a great screeching sound. It might have been a turkey call, that one. But
yeah, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you. But the main reason was the Buddy Holly. I'm really not Buddy Holly. I'm pranking you, man. I'm the cool guy. I was going to say I'm Buddy Holly from Lubbock, Texas, but
Okay, that's cool. That's cool, because I was going to, it's funny you say that because I was going to start the show today. I was going to say, hey, I'm in a helicopter right now and I'm going to jump into the studios at Grizzly Peak and I've got a big joint and I'm lighting it up right now. I'm going to be the first person to smoke a joint on the way down from jumping from 3,000 feet. And, you could do anything. On the radio, you could tell anything to anybody, right? They've done it.
For sure. I was going to ask you about, didn't you say you hung out with Waylon Jennings for a while?
Well, yeah, we went on the road with him and Willie. That was a beautiful tour. And when I also did some shows with Waylon in the Bay Area, friends of mine promoted some shows of his, and I helped and worked with him and got to meet Ernest Tubb of the Texas Troubadours, man, and he was a great guy too. And he was opening up for those guys, and then Willie and Waylon. We got real friendly with those guys, and went on the road with Willie a few times, and Willie and Waylon a couple of times. Yeah.
I was just wondering if you'd ever talked to him about giving up his seat on the plane. That's a story. Him that gave up his seat to Buddy Holly, or was it Richie Valens?
It was Richie Valens who gave it to. Buddy was on there. Richie Valens had a cold, and he was not feeling well, and he wasn't supposed to go on the plane. But the last minute, Waylon said, "You go ahead," because it would be a little shorter run. It was in Iowa, and they were heading out on a snowy night. And on the road, you have to make those choices real quick, man. Do I want to go on the bus and be a little colder? In those days, buses weren't. It was 1958, I think, and buses weren't. Like the rock and roll ones they got now. It's a little bit more dangerous and at night, riding those things in the bad weather. It's always a challenge. It's just like, we took off many times from Alpine Valley up in Wisconsin on helicopters. That was the way you went in and out of there. And if the pilot didn't know to pull up and get over that hill, there was a hill there. That's how we lost Stevie Ray Vaughan, because the pilot didn't get enough altitude and took off and hit that hill. And at night, if you ever left there at night, you couldn't see it. It was pitch black, there was no lights there, and you had to know that hill was there. So those things are always out there, man, the choices, and you can talk to a lot of people in life. I could tell you stories like that in life, more than that, people that went somewhere and met their fate on different days. It's just that way, man.
Yeah, I've been to that Alpine. That's one of my few Grateful Dead shows that I've been to, and that's a great place for a concert. But man, it's such a shame when that happens, like you say.
Yeah. Well, and I remember the first time that somebody passed away at a show. Man, they died out there, and it really hurt. The whole band felt so bad, man. The guy overdosed in a bathroom way out at Roosevelt Stadium, far out there. And when we heard about it, everybody felt real bad, and said, why? I said, why do we feel so bad? Because he's here to see a show or whatever. He came here because of the show and did something stupid, But yeah, you got to be responsible for whatever you do in life, when you bring people places. It brings a lot of stuff with it. It makes it amazing amount of stuff is entwined in traveling with a band and doing all the things that you have to do. When it gets more success you have at it, the harder it gets. Anyway, there we go.
Yeah, but I just wanted to. I was wondering if you had ever talked to Waylon about the fact that he, whether he carried any weight about that.
Well, the call right before this, I talked about that. I don't know if you heard it, but you might have had your radio turned down. But I talked exactly about that because the guy Eddie was asking about that same thing, and Waylon took it like a man. He felt when he told me about it, I could see he was still hurting from it, but you keep going, it's something that you never leaves your mind. It's like a haunt, it's like something in there, a shadow, something. And that's how it was. And he never forgot it, And hearing it from him made it even more effective when I heard the story. So.
Oh yeah, I imagine. That's why I was just curious whether you had talked to him about that, because that had to have been something that you'd want to ask, and it's like, man, how you doing with that? You know, being friend. You know, just trying to.
Well, he was the kind of guy, you know, and I can't speak for him, but he was a very strong individual. You could feel it, you know. He was a man's man in that way, and he wasn't about to cry a tear, but you could see that he had the lines of worry in his head that told you that he thought about it a few times for sure.
Yeah. All right, brother. Well, I appreciate everything you're doing out there, man.
All right. Well, thanks for calling. And always good to talk to you, man. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. And the next caller is...
Let's see. Next caller is going to be Steve, who's calling in from Burlington, Vermont.
Oh, good. Steve.
Steve, what's up?
Hey, man. Good to talk to Vermont. How are you up there?
I'm doing really awesome, man. I've been hitting you up on social media, threatening to call in and talk about the drummers.
Oh, good. Let's do it. Come on, man.
Right on. Hey, can I give a shout out to my family real quick?
Go ahead, sure.
So I'm from actually the Buffalo, New York area, and
Okay.
there's towns of Lockport, Newfane, Alcat. There's tons of really kind Grateful Dead family up that way. So I hope some of them are listening.
All right. That's a great area of the country right there. And you're right. There's so many great Grateful Dead fans. We used to play in Buffalo and have such a good time because the people there is what made the difference in that city, man. They always welcomed us with really open arms, you know, and took really good care of us. There was this man, Mr. D, that was the stage manager there, and he was old school all the way. Boy, he was great, but he sure took good care of us, man.
Oh, that's good to hear, man. I actually called there's a local sports station there. I called up one time. They were looking for people to call in with things other than Buffalo Bills memories. So, you know, people were calling in with high school football and stuff. And I called up. I was driving home. I got on the air, and I said, you know, the Grateful Dead played there in 1989. And at the end of their second set, they played a Buddy Holly song. And the band slowly faded away. And everybody was clapping and singing, you know, our love will not fade away.
Yep.
And I told them, I said, it was this beautiful moment of peace and love and nice summer night. And the guy goes, yeah, good job, man. That was nice.
Well, yeah, you had Rich Stadium. I think you're talking about Rich Stadium right there. And then we played the War Memorial all the time, you know, in the early days. And that's a heck of a place. I mean, I don't know if it's still there, but I'm sure it probably is. And with Jerry's band, I get to go to the theaters, you know, like Buffalo Shea. That was a great old theater.
Oh, yeah.
And that place had history to it all over the place. And, you know, we used to stay at the Statler Hilton Hotel, man. And that place, that was an old hotel right there, man. Downtown Buffalo. Old Buffalo.
That's my stomping ground. Right on.
So, yeah.
So, hey, I wanted to ask, how much did you get involved with Billy and Micky's, like, equipment? Like, I know you did a lot with guitars and stuff. I know, I'm sorry.
Are you kidding? Let me tell you something, man. You didn't come around the Grateful Dead, and you cut your teeth on Micky, Hart, and Billy. And that's how I did anyway. That's how I did. And when, you know, Jackson and I went down to L.A., and he said, here, you setting up Billy's drums, you know, and he taught me how to set Billy's drums up, right? And then Micky came along with that, you know, and so the thing was that Micky really could teach you a lot of stuff, and Billy too. And so it was a learning thing. And in those days, Micky had 6 gongs, and they were straight on the floor, no risers or anything. But I was watching this thing, Ken Burns documentary on jazz, you know, and he had a thing at the Savoy Ballroom, and Chick Webb, who we knew real well. You see, we talked all day long about drums and the mystery of them, and all the great drummers like Gene Krupa and Chick Webb, who was the guy who invented the hi-hat, man. And we knew the history of how drums, through Micky, he had all these collections. Him and his dad had a drum shop in San Mateo, California. And they made this drum head called a psychedelic swirl. And when you put it on the front of the bass drum and you'd beat on it, and it'd move a little bit, and it just would catch the light, and it had a swirl. Somewhere in my barn, I still got one. I probably got the last one in the world, man.
That's killer.
And anyway, they that was their claim to fame. And so Micky would tell me all about all the old drummers, and then we'd talk about it. And setting Billy's drums up was just a pleasure, man. He was so good. He'd tell you how to do what he liked, and you learned how to do it. And I could almost do it for him right now, the way we did it, exactly in that way, just simple, straight ahead. Now Micky got complicated, and he took it as far as it could go, But here's the thing I was telling you. So Chick Webb's, I hear in this documentary that he played so hard and beat it that he had to nail his drums down, and that's where we learned it from him. We had to nail our drums down because Micky played so hard, and so we used to take 2 double head nails and put them in the front of the bass drum and hammer those in, man, in the stages, the most delicate stages, man. You had to be so careful. And they didn't like us doing that, so we had to kind of be real careful about that. Then we had it, then the hi-hat would start moving on the guy. And there were all kinds of different tricks you could use. There were chains they used to have in the old days to clamp on from the bass drum to your hi-hat and your cymbals and your floor toms even, because everything could start moving when a guy gets boogieing, man. He's moving in every direction playing the drums, And so Micky had these gongs, man. He had 6 gongs that we had to set up every time. And not only that, then Micky was frying bacon, man. He'd make us fry bacon at the show, and he would take a microphone and he'd put it down in there and capture the fucking pops and snaps of the bacon, and it was great because that bacon smell just covered all of our weed. We could smoke pot when the bacon was burning, man. And it just was like everybody was ready for breakfast at the show. Now that ended one night when he kicked that thing over, man. He just reached down and just kicked it over, and that oil went all over the cables and melted stuff. It was a mess. And so never again did that come out. But then we had a plywood sheet with a cannon on it, a small little cannon that you pulled a lanyard, and it pulled a firing pin that fired into a shotgun shell that was in there, and it was mounted on this but it was a blank. We didn't fire real shotgun shells in there, but a blank is full of powder still, and it was on a plywood square about a foot by a foot, and it was screwed down in the middle there. And so Ramrod would always, when they started Alligator, man, you had to be on it. That thing had to be loaded, and Micky would just lean down and pull that lanyard, man, and bam, bam, man, he'd pull that thing, and it would sound as loud as a shotgun going off. And so that was something that you had to listen for the band when they were, because in those days you didn't know when they were going to play it, so they would go into it and get a little thing, and you jump down, grab a shotgun shell, stick it in there, and then Micky'd pull that. And so Ramrod was putting the shell in that night, and his face was right there by the vent on that cannon, because it had to vent the gas out some way for when the explosion occurred. And so he got it face right on it, man. It just peppered his face, and we couldn't scrub it off. He looked like a raccoon for the whole tour, and he was so pissed off, man. And that was the end of the cannon. Never got put out again. But that thing was in there for years, man. The cannon was there before my time even. And Micky was so great at teaching you all about stuff, but he was incredible. I mean, he would just impeccably work on his drums 24/7, man. It was like always, every day. And then the most fun was learning. They taught us how to go and shop for them, and so we'd go to all the music stores. And in those days, we'd take the 5B sticks. They were playing Regal Tips before we got real friendly with the people at Regal Tip, and then they gave us all the sticks. But we used to have to roll them all, and nobody else would do that, but we knew all the old tricks. You roll them to make sure they're just flat and perfect, each time. And drum heads were the other thing. You had to learn to change drum heads and to put them on properly, and we got taught that. And there's all kinds of great mechanical stuff in the drum set, and tearing it down and putting it together is a real science, man. And you have to know how to do it to make it work right for the drummer, because for him, it's comfort zone, man, and he's got to be up there playing and moving every one of his limbs for the entire show, And so you keep an eye on your drummer and make sure he's not, in trouble, in need of anything, because he can't do much, but can't get off that thing. So the real important thing you learned was you sitting back there, you watched your guy when you were taking care of the drums. especially with Micky. And if you weren't, well, you got a drumstick in the head, man. He'd throw it right at you, man. And, he wouldn't play around. And a sharp, when they break drumsticks, man, those things are sharp and they go flying off, And talking about nailing down everything, we got to nail everything down. But I think it was in St. Louis one night, man, Kreutzmann's cymbal flew down in the audience, and, man, it hit a girl right in the forehead, the edge of it, man.
Oh, no.
Oh, shit. And she could have been hurt really bad, but miraculously, it just broke the skin a little bit, and she was okay, Nowadays, that would be a big deal, if that happened.
Yeah.
But that's where we started nailing the cymbals down, too. And then, of course, we started bringing plywood sheets, and then that turned into a drum riser, and we could nail into that as much as we wanted. And, yeah, we'd take a little bit of tape and tape those things down, man, around a nail. And that was that. That was our secret.
Did they mostly play sonar drums through the years?
No, in the early days, there was everybody had kind of hodgepodge sets, when you didn't have a lot of money and stuff. And Billy liked Rogers, and Micky, he played all kinds of different ones, Slingerland and everything. Ludwig, we had Ludwig pedals because they liked Ludwig pedals, and we'd have cymbal stands. We'd try every kind there were. They started really improving as the 70s came around. They started making them heavy duty. They were real thin before that, and so we used all that kind of hardware. But as it began improving, and then we got going and getting things, once you start going, then everybody wants you to be endorsements, you see. So then you get everything, man. You get drum heads for free from Remo. Remo made drum heads and came to hang out with us all the time. Carol from Regal Tip. Carol was up at Regal Tip up in Niagara Falls, and she would bring us boxes of sticks, man, and we didn't have to go to music stores anymore, And in that way, by the way, I just remembered something. Down at the warehouse where I'm working on this inventory right now, I just found we kept all the old drumsticks, and I got a bunch of those. We got to do something cool with those. I'm going to think about that.
I was going to ask you, where is all the gear from through the years? I know, Micky, used to have this huge China cymbal he'd keep on his lap.
No, Micky's got all that with him. Micky has a huge barn, a beautiful studio barn where he lives, not far from where I am right now.
That's awesome.
And he has everything of our drums. We collected drums.
Candyland.
Man, it's every drum we ever collected. And we used to get amazing drums. I remember in those days when we started, it was still... There were drums around from the 40s, man, and I got this snare drum that was a Slingerland. No, it was a Rogers snare drum, and it was wooden. The whole thing was made out of wood from World War II when they didn't have metal. And the receivers even that you screwed down into were this fine wood. Yeah, that was a trip, man. I think he's still got that in his collection. And we had Kunga drums, Pig played Kunga drums, and Micky liked to have them up there, and we just all kinds of drums, man, steel drums and gamelons, man. We Micky would go on trips, man, and he'd go all over the world and collect drums and bring them back. And seashells. He has a collection of seashells that I used to have to hang on strings, man. And it drive me nuts, man, when that thing was just so hard to do. But Micky insisted, oh, my God, man. Me and him would get into arguments, yelling at each other. Nobody can hear it, I'd say. What do you want to play that fucking shell for? Just do it, man.
Yeah, he can hear it. Yeah, yeah.
And so it was all kinds of stuff. And then, in the studio was the hardest thing with you drums because you had to baffle everything, and having two drummers is really tough. It's hard enough to record with one drummer, but two is really a challenge. And so having two drummers was a real challenge. Yeah.
I always thought bands with two drummers were just a little cooler. And, I think they were way locked in such a huge percentage of the time, and very few recordings do I hear flubs or where something was off with the feel and the percussion, and they should get a lot of credit for that because it gets way more complicated than 1 to 2 when you add another drummer, in my opinion.
Well, it's a subtle thing. It's a very subtle thing, and you can look at the other guy and watch him, but there's still a delay, and it's really hard to catch that, man, and to stay in time together, two guys. It's a beautiful thing when it starts happening, But originally it started because the twin reverb went to 100 watts, and they were so loud that everybody before that the drums were the loudest thing. So then the idea of having 2 drums made sense for a while there.
Yeah. Right on. Well, Steve, thanks a lot, man. I know everybody says thank you, but
that's only half the story, man. Next time, call me and we'll talk about the Beast and all the other stuff
we could do this. We could do this all night. But
yes,
thanks so much for what you share. I know the deadheads love it, and you share a lot of compassion with folks too when they call, and you're always encouraging. So, thanks for everything, man.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you
soon.
Right
on. Take care.
Okay, bye. Okay.
All right. Let's see. Up next, we have Tom. Tom is calling in from Delaware.
Hello?
Tom. You got Steve here.
Oh, hi, Steve.
Hi.
My name's Tom. I'm calling from Lewis, Delaware.
Okay.
You were about Buddy Holly and the Waylon Jennings connection, and I've always been curious about that, and I did some research, and Waylon actually played in the touring band for that rock and roll show.
Yeah.
He was not a cricket. Well, people wonder what
he came in and stepped in the later formation of the band. Yes, he wasn't the original cricket, but he did come in and play bass, replace. I forget the guy's name.
If you recall in the movie, there's no mention of him, and the actual cricket.
That's right.
That Buddy was going out like that, and I thought I would interject that. And
well, in those days, everybody picked up bands. I mean, Buddy, we used to play with Chuck Berry all the time on shows. He never had the same band, and he'd pick up any band he could in town and teach them in the afternoon. He'd just have a sound check with them and do a couple of tunes, and then that was it, man. And Buddy,
I saw Buddy Holly, and I lived in California for several years, and I was at a basketball game that Chuck Berry and a band were playing afterwards, and it was like they were high school kids, and they did all of Chuck Berry's tunes, and he was fabulous. He did the duck walk and all the different stuff. It was cool. But anyway, thanks for picking up my call, Steve. Have a great day. Have a great show. Bye.
Okay, thank you for calling. Nice talking to you. Okay, Lauren.
All right, let's see. We've got Patrick. Patrick is calling in from LA. I don't know if that means California or the state of Louisiana. We will find out.
Patrick.
Yeah.
Hi. You got Big Steve. How you doing?
Hey, Steve. How are you, man?
I'm good.
Great to talk to you. Hey, I wanted to tell you how much I appreciated your book, Home Before Daylight.
Okay.
And it has a lot of great stories in it. And I don't know, it's been a long time since I've read it. I probably should read it again. But the other thing I wanted to talk to you about was Ken Kesey. You were about a month ago. You were talking about Ken, and I had a really interesting encounter with him. Just telling what a great guy he was. I was in the middle of the Anaheim Stadium during the Dylan and the Dead.
Right.
And I saw this guy walking by, and I had seen Ken Kesey on the Letterman show about 2 weeks prior, and he was talking about his hemp hat. Kind of making a point about, marijuana, whatever. And I saw this guy walking by with a hemp hat, and I said, wow, if that's him. I tapped him on the shoulder, and I said, are you Ken Kesey? And I think he might have been a little paranoid or something, because he had sunglasses on. And, he might have thought I was a FBI or something. And he goes, pulls the sunglasses off, and he goes, yes, I am. And I started babbling, because one of my favorite movies is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and I started babbling and telling him how much I appreciated the movie. And then I went, wow, because I had read that he would never go see the movie.
Oh, he never
and then I said, it's one of the greatest books of all time. I was trying to make up for it. And then I said, you know what you should go see that movie, because you are the beginning of, you
that is your fault. That whole movie, and it, won the top 5 Academy Awards. It was, one of the greatest movies of all time, as far as I'm concerned. I know he was pissed off because he didn't. They didn't use his screenplay, but it turned out.
Here's the thing, man. You want to know the story on that? Okay, Ken talked about it to us a lot, and originally he sold it to Dale Wasserman, this guy Dale Wasserman, to do it as a play, and then Michael Douglas bought it, and then this is what happens in Hollywood when they buy your piece. They can do whatever they want with it. They can change it however they want. And they didn't give him, the say in it. He got into a beef about that, and he just walked away from that. That's how he was, man. And he would never, you telling him to go see it, you might as well just have yelled at the wind, because he knew that story. He lived that story, man. He lived at that story his life. That was basically he was the orderly in that thing. When he worked in the Oregon State Pen, the Oregon State Asylum. Yeah, he wrote that at night, and he knew all those characters, man. They're real people, and it affected him. And just the brilliance of, when I first talked to him about it, I went right to the novel, and I knew he didn't want to ever talk about the movie. And I said, well, what a brilliant thing he told me. The first thing he told me, he said, Steve, think about it. He said, every story has a author's mouthpiece, and I said, well, yeah, which was yours, McMurphy? He goes, no, the chief. And I laughed, man, because the chief doesn't say a word till the end of that thing, and that was his spokesman. That's who he spoke to. The chief was such a character to him, and they did some things in the movie that he didn't approve of, but he didn't know about it, but he heard about it. Now, let me tell you another story. He wrote another book that's really cool called Sometimes a Great Notion. And he loved that one. He was there on the set every day. We went and hung out with him when we played up in Oregon, and they were doing that on the river up there. And in the very place, he knew loggers, man, and he wrote about the loggers, and he really has a great story. That's a great book. And Paul Newman was doing the movie and hung out with us, and they drank beer together every day. It was a whole different experience than One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where he didn't have anything to do with that. Production of that, but everybody loves the way they did a good job with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. They really did. Amazing casting, and the acting was incredible in it, and so it has its merits. But you got to understand, from Kesey's point of view, it was like his child, man. He lived with that story, and it was his first novel, and it made it. And what a great thing! And his feelings were hurt, and so. He would never be, he was a very brave man. He would talk to anybody, man. He was not afraid of anything. And so you stopping him and talking to him like that, he would be glad to tell you, yes, I'm Ken Kesey. He wasn't thinking you were an FBI person or anything. He was open to any people because he dealt with the FBI. And let me tell you that, he probably liked that, but once you start talking about that thing, his mind would have gone to another place because he's heard that so many times, and it's not
you're right.
That you would even understand. But he's such an amazing guy, man. He was really, he smiled that smile. When you probably said that to him, he broke in that smile, that Kesey smile. And, I'll always remember that smile, man, because he would take time to read to a child. He would take time to care about you and who your family were. And if you had a problem, he would deal with it, Amazing person, man. Really great guy.
Well, he was very nice to me. But he said
of course he would be. Of course he would. Yeah.
And he said something that, because I'm also a writer. I'm not published or anything yet, or I haven't had any, productions, but I'm aspiring. And the one thing he said to me was, thank you. I caught a good wave. And, it was very humble. And I just went, wow, that's stuck with me all these years.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing right there, man. Thank you for saying that. Man.
Well, that's why I wanted to relay the story, because it's got such a great, a great ending to it. It was just like, I caught a good wave.
Yeah, he was a real sensitive person, man. He was real good man, real good man. Yeah, I miss him a lot.
Yeah. Well, thank you anyway, man, and appreciate talking to you.
Yeah, and the way to know him was when you got the honor of going out to his farm, man. That was where he was open book, man. And so, but you spent that moment with him, and you took away a lot from that, and that's a beautiful thing right there, man. That's a beautiful thing.
I did. I took a great deal from it.
You're very true, very right about all that you said. About that story. People who haven't seen that movie can see the movie and read the book too. Because it's a great ride, and that's what he put his heart and soul into. But,
I when that movie came out, I went to San Francisco. It was only playing at one theater, and I got there at noon. I had to see that film, and on the day it opened, it's such an impact on me, and the book too. I mean, the reason I wanted to see the movie was because of the book. So. Yeah, he was a very accomplished human being, and very, like you said, very humble.
And there's lots more to talk about Kesey, so I always love to talk about him. There's all kinds of sides to that gentleman. All right, well, thank you for calling, man.
Thank you, Steve.
Nice
I appreciate it.
About that. Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Call me again.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
I will.
Yeah.
I got more stories.
Good. All right. Who do we have next now, Lauren?
Let's see. Up next, we have Mike. Mike is calling in from New Bedford, Massachusetts.
Oh, good. New Bedford. Yeah. Mike, you there?
Hey.
Can
you hear me?
Yes. Oh, New Bedford. How are you up there?
Good. Hi, Steve. We're commercial fishermen from East Coast.
I love it.
This is great talking to you. I have one thing I've been wanting to ask you.
Okay.
In the 70s, right, with Jerry, he always teased a lot. No one's fault but mine, right? But he rarely sang the words.
Right.
You have any insight on that?
Well, the thing is that what Jerry told me was that he couldn't sing a song unless he believed in the words, and he loved almost every song he picked. He loved the words and could stand behind them. But sometimes, he would have things, Hunter and would write stuff that was really so deep inside. He would understand stuff about Jerry so deep that he would stumble on a couple of lines. And I think it was sort of like a Freudian slip, not something that he did on purpose or something. But when he was playing, whenever a guy's out there playing his guitar or playing drums or piano or anything, they change. They're not like regular person when they're playing and they're deep in the music, man. I mean, that's why I always felt like protecting them, because they're so vulnerable at that point, man. They're out there playing and they're just into that and nothing else, and everything else disappears, And when you step up to the mic to sing, there can be a million different things that happen sometimes. So sometimes it could have been, just a bubble in your throat or a scratchy part and you drop it, But I know what you're talking about. A lot of times you stumble over that line.
It would rarely sing the words. That's a question I want to have for David Lemieux sometimes. How many times?
Well, he might notice. He might have caught it in that. But, sometimes they forget for a second. But if it's always the same line, it's because he had so many songs, man. When I look at the catalog of songs those guys had, it's incredible, man. We had a book that I had to carry in the gear, man, that was 4 fucking giant telephone books big of all the songs, man. If they forgot a lyric in the afternoon and they wanted to study it, he very often would ask to look at a book, we called it. And I was just found it the other day and I was looking at it. I said, it's like a relic now because, everything became computerized, whatever, and on lists of different kinds. But that was the old book that we had. And the songs in there's so many of them. So, if you might
it was
think
incredible.
That
I miss him so much. I met him a couple of times, but it was the highlight of my life. But Big Steve, I think what you're doing is great. It's excellent to hear some of these old stories, and I've been wanting to ask you that.
How you guys doing up there, man? Are you able
about that?
are you guys able to fish? Are you able to go out now and do everything like you used to? Or
Yep, we're fishing. Currently fishing. Coronavirus hurt us. You know, it's a fishing base called the Instigator.
There you go.
But we're on the East Coast, and coronavirus hurt us like everyone else. But
right.
But we're the only boat on the East Coast that 24/7. Jerry's on our deck speakers. We're walking down the dock.
I love it. I love it, man.
On Sirius, we leave it on all the time. So,
well, that's great.
I really appreciate the time, Steve.
Well, I appreciate you guys too, and stay safe out there, man. I know that, it could be dangerous at times, so be careful. And, it's good hearing you, man. Thanks for calling. Appreciate it.
We love you a lot. Thanks.
Okay. Love you guys too, man. And, call me back. I know you have another question in there somewhere, so.
I have a whole bunch. I will call you back at a future time.
Good. I like that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye. Okay.
All right. Let's see. Up next, we have a lot of good callers. Let's go with Cowboy Neil, who is calling in from Arizona.
All right.
Hello.
Hey, Neil. How you doing?
Good. This is Cowboy Neil out here in Arizona.
Good. How are you?
Yeah, good. I grew up around D.C., and a few weeks ago you said something about, bringing up some stories from Washington, D.C. And my first show was at RFK in 92, the Casey Jones breakout show. And I saw Jerry, a dozen times or so. And since Jerry passed, I've been to probably 300 shows, and me and my friends have videotaped a lot of those shows. So I know your pain and going city to city, with setup and charging batteries and just the hassles of equipment from city to city. So it's kind of funny to hear your struggles about that too. But in 1999, I'm looking up the internet right now, but I think it was the bicentennial of the Smithsonian. And is it Smithsonian? Micky Hart and Bob Weir played there.
Right.
Were you a part of that at all, or?
Well, Micky had a good friend there, and he became our friend, all of our friends, and his name was Tom Venom, and he was a professor, and he was a deadhead and a really nice guy. And Micky met him he was an ethnomusicologist, and he started hanging out with us every time we came to Washington, and then he got us to go in. We'd get to go in the back rooms of the Smithsonian Institute. And, I don't know if a lot of people understand what that place is, but the history of the Smithsonian Institute is really interesting. A guy named Smith, an Englishman who never set foot in the United States in his life, left his money to build that museum in the United States to house all the memorabilia of American history. And so as a kid, I went there once with my dad when I was only 7 years old, and I was blown away. They had the real stuff, man, George Washington's saddle and all these great things. And then Tom, as the years went on, he got to take us in and way back behind the scenes, and the museum had grown. It was big and took up all that space on the mall. So it was part of all of our things. And Jerry and I got to go there one time, and they had a Stradivarius violin, and we had to put the white gloves on, and they took the Stradivarius out, and Jerry got to play it, and he couldn't play it too well because he wasn't a violinist, but just holding it, and that's where I realized that his guitar, like the Tiger and the Wolf, would one day be just like that, rarer than a Stradivarius because there's a lot less of it. Those were made, but it was a kind of a be able to touch into history, and Micky set all that up. And so then Micky and Bobby went back there in 99 and played on the mall there. They had a big celebration, and it was something very dear to all of our hearts, that place. So
I videoed that too, and I've been thinking of putting it up on my YouTube channel, and we'll probably kick it off, maybe not. But there's no video of that out there, so I figured I don't
think so. I've never seen any of it. But
I've got it. So
good. Good.
Might put up there. I know Tito. I think Tito Puente played there.
Tito Puente,
right before he passed away.
Yeah, he was a great friend too. We did it. Jerry and I once did a show with him in L.A., man, and God, we never met him. We walk in there, and boy, he just loved Jerry. They got along so great, man. And Micky knew Tito Puente. And,
we played the band. It was like the Saturday Night Live band, and I think like
horns,
Justin Timberlake was there when he was like a little kid.
Just starting out, right? Just starting out. He was a youngster.
Yeah, I watched that video the other night. I was like, I better put this up. And
that's a cool little piece of history you got there, man. That's good.
Yeah, I've got I've got boxes full of high 8 tapes and probably 10 terabytes full of video archive of my own. I need to get it out there probably at some point, but we did all of like the other one shows and Rat Dog shows, and it seems like everybody has copyright issues with those things on YouTube. Except for the Rat Dog show I put up there. That has no copyright infringements at all, which is kind of cool. There's always these crazy like copyright infringement, like somebody I never heard of owning the rights to a certain song. Like that's not their song, what are these people doing? So
it's complicated. It's complicated, man. Very so.
I never tried to make any money off of it. I just did it because I like to do it, and so I'd have memory of the show, after the show, and
that's what it's about.
Like, there's more memories contained in this box than are worth remembering, something like that. But
there you go. You got it. You see, you captured it right there. I know, that's amazing, because when you see all the different changes, the formats, of how people record stuff, and now a lot of places they don't let you bring a camera in, or what am I talking about? Everybody's got a camera
now. I tell you,
everybody's got a camera
sometimes, but it's really tough, especially a tripod. So
yeah, right. So people do it on their phones.
Now I have a tripod that doubles as a walking stick, and I'm old enough to get away with having a walking stick. So you can't take an old man's walking stick, right?
Well, I'm old enough to wonder how people hold their phone up now for a whole show and record the whole show. Why don't they just enjoy the show?
And I've got around in my share, like, with 20 people around me holding their phones up, and I'm sitting there with a tripod, and not a professional camera, but a nice one, and I get thrown out, and like, look, I'm like, you're throwing me off of videoing, and I'm looking at 20 people videoing the show right now. It's like the irony,
Right, exactly. Well, thank you for calling, man.
Thanks for giving me a call, man.
Okay.
All right. Take care, Steve. Love you.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Love you too, man.
All right. Take care.
All right. And
all right. Let's see. We've got, let's do another caller I know we've spoken to before. This is Mark from Maryland.
Okay. Hey, Mark.
How you doing, Steve?
I'm good. How are you? You good?
I'm doing great. Who gave you the nickname Big Steve?
My father. I was helping him build a shed, and he called me Big Steve because I was bigger than him, and he didn't like that. He did not like that I was bigger than him. And so then it kind of, when I got older, I started playing football, and it stuck a little bit as a local name, and then people picked up on it when I came into the Grateful Dead scene, and that was it.
Yeah, I just wondered, there must have been and are some really interesting nicknames with the band and the crew.
Of course.
Over the years.
Oh, of course, man. Everybody had side names, nicknames, joke names, piss 'em off names. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Everybody had that. And like I always said, when I first came to work for the Grateful Dead, you had to remember everybody's real alias because we were all in trouble with the law, man, for real. And in those days, you had to carry your draft card, you have to carry your driver's license, you had to have ID, you had to have everything. And we'd get pulled over by the freaking FBI, man. And they would ask for your draft cards. And we didn't carry them. And then, so you had to remember, Danny Rifkin was Danny Faber, all kinds of things like that. Ramrod was Iverson. And Kreutzmann was Summers. If you made a mistake, you'd fuck up, and then somebody have to go to jail. So you had to remember everybody's different names. Then there were the nicknames. All the dealers had nicknames. Hell's Angels all had nicknames, and you didn't know anybody by their real name. And so it was different reasons in those days. People were running from the law or expecting to be in trouble any minute or something. So
right.
And then on the road, when we first started going on the road, everybody just went under their own name, because we all stayed in just a couple of rooms all thrown together. It didn't matter. Right. Then as things got bigger and bigger and got more fame and people started harassing everybody at the hotel, some of the guys in the band had to put aliases down for their names, so it wouldn't get calls all night long.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you like a follow-up question to that.
Okay.
When you all went to Europe in 1972, right? Talking about, when the band started traveling, that was a huge undertaking. How did finance that happen?
Well, we had meetings and meetings and talked about it, and Sam Cutler was a genius of putting European tour together. We wouldn't have been able to have done that 72 tour without Sam's expertise. He put that thing together, and he knew all the promoters in Europe, and we were anxious to go, man. Going to Europe and tour the continent, that was a dream come true for us guys. But we went there as the Grateful Dead, and representing the way we were in those days. And so we got culturally into it. That's where we got the bozo and bolos thing. It was supposed to be like some guys, the bolos were a little more cultural than the bozos, some days. And then other days, the bozos would just be very valuable because we'd go into these towns, man, and it was incredible. We'd be high on acid, and the whole little towns all throughout France and Germany, they could feel it. These two buses would pull in with these freaks, and everybody vibrating, and they could feel the disturbance in the atmosphere. And then we would go to the sites, and we would just be cracking up at the stuff we'd see. And they have what they call bas relief. I'm probably not pronouncing it properly, but these pictures of all the kings and the royalty are on every castle and all the places. And so we would just be cracking up looking at that stuff, because St. Dilbert came from that, because we saw some faces that just didn't look like the people were earthlings. They looked almost out of worldly beings, And I had a couple of good conversations with gargoyles on the top of old Notre Dame before it. When I see that it burnt down, I feel bad, because I got to walk up there on acid, man. Me and Ramrod found our way up there and had such a great time. But you can't do that anymore. But we did a lot of fun things on that trip, man. And that trip was real special because we took everybody with us, man. That wanted to go.
Had an American band done anything like that up to that point? Or
sure. American bands went there, but when we got there, I remember when we got into England, this customs guy told me, he said, "What are you Yanks doing here?" I said, "We're coming here to play rock and roll." He goes, "Well, we're the ones that got the rock and roll. What are you coming here?" I said, "Excuse me, I think we invented it, and you might have copied it." He said, "What?" No, boy, we almost got in a fight. This guy, he didn't want to believe me, and So in those days, Europe was very different before the European Union, and every place was a border and a carnet. Man, it was a hassle moving around. And so back to your original question, it was very difficult, the logistics of moving through Europe. And not only that, imagine we had all kinds of drugs with us too. And so that was another thing.
Right. And all the equipment.
Which we never were going to lose that. So
yeah,
there you go. And we had in France, we got in a beef with the stagehands, and they put sugar in the gas tank, and the truck broke down. That's why we had to restructure the part of France there, Lille. We had to cancel that gig and redo it, and had a riot at that show. Oh. But yeah, things happen like that. And then trying to take in 1974, we went back with the Wall of Sound. That was so difficult, man. That about burned everybody to the ground, man. Whew. Yeah. And we weren't taking as much acid either, so that might have been a detriment to us. Man.
Well, last thought, man. If the cards break right, Grizzly Peak won't have to worry about Schedule 1 much longer.
That's right. And
that's right.
I think that's going to be a good thing when that happens.
I think it's going to be a very good thing, and maybe you'll have it in Maryland, and I can try it.
Oh, definitely.
Look forward to it.
It'll be all over the place, man. I thought Maryland was legalized. Isn't Maryland got medical?
We have it for medical but you can't bring it in from out of state. It's got to be grown in state to sell it.
Well, I smoked some good weed from Maryland. It's okay.
I'll bet you did. But I'll let somebody else talk. But it was good talking to you.
Okay. All right. Nice talking to you. Thanks, man. I'll talk to you again. Bye. Okay. I think, are we out of time or do we got one more or what do you think?
Let's do, I think we started like a minute late. I think we can squeeze one more out of it tonight.
Okay.
Let's go to Emily. Emily is also calling from Maryland.
Oh, good. Hi, Emily.
Hi, Steve. How are you?
I'm good. We squeezed you in. You're the caller of the day.
I'll be quick. I'm so glad you guys took my call. I'm a huge fan. I listen every week, and I never get in, and I'm so happy. So I'll make it quick.
Oh, I'm glad.
But I'm a teacher, and I heard what you were saying earlier about teachers, and I wanted you to finish what you were saying because I was starting to get inspired, and then you stopped talking, and I want to hear what you have to say.
If you don't, you had guys like me and Jerry and everybody in the Grateful Dead and the crew and the band. We were street kids, and a couple weren't. Bobby was not, and some of the other guys weren't. Phil, not so much. But the rest of us grew up on the streets. And if we didn't have a teacher that inspired us at some point, Jerry had him, I had him, we talked about this stuff. Even, Ramrod, who came from Pendleton, Oregon, he never read a whole book in his life. He read about a page of Tom Sawyer. And I loved to read. I was taught to read as a kid, and I loved reading. And so when we didn't have radio, we didn't have anything, I would read to the guys at night, man, and it was so beautiful. And everybody would talk about, wow, they remembered a teacher's story, believe it or not, as hard-boiled as we were, and all been to reform school and terrible things, man, really, because we were all really, juvenile delinquents and bad things like that. We cut school, but we still respected it, and we loved teachers, and teachers is what
I'll tell you,
we're all about.
As a teacher, I'm a reading teacher, and so for you to say that means so much to me because
that's the most important
reading
thing.
Can change a kid's life. Not a kid, it can change an adult's life.
So true.
And I truly believe that. I really appreciate you reading because the smartest minds out there are dyslexics, and that makes reading very difficult. So if someone can read to you, it can be life changing. And so I really appreciate that.
It opens up amazing things, and everybody loved it. When I would read even nonfiction, we would read that on the airplanes and stuff like that, and just fascinated by different facts that you can find out about the world you live in, And then if you get into the classics, oh my God, it's so beautiful to know all the classics, we had to learn those, and But
I teach middle school, and so and actually the screwballs are my favorite kids. I tend to take them under my wing and protect them because they need it, and I really appreciate that.
Well, you're really a wonderful person. I can just tell by talking to you. And my hat's off to you.
That means so much to me. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for taking my call.
Of course. God bless us all for just people like you that help and look out for the kids. And thank you for everybody.
Thank you.
And on that note, I'm going to have to say goodbye, Emily. And
good night, Steve. Thank you.
Okay, and call me again. We'll talk about this some more. There's lots more to tell you.
I definitely will. Thank you.
Bye. All right. I guess we